This conference will now be recorded.
If you'd all please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. We're going to get started with our first item of business, which is approval of minutes from our regular meeting of May 27, 2025. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, on to announcements. I want to announce that we're going to add an item number 5 under new business. And this is in consideration of advanced payment to Leatherman Construction for a project, and we'll talk more about that when we get down to that. Any other announcements? Okay, we will move on to any open discussion. Any open discussion from council? Okay, department head reports. We'll get started with Park. Casey.
I'll start with the cemetery. The Memorial Day parade went really well. Thanks to Legion for doing that. It was a nice day, nice and cool. So mowing's a lot of mowing going on, and I think cemetery looks really nice. So that's all I have with cemetery.
Any questions for Casey on cemetery? Okay, we're going to move on to the park report, please.
A lot of information sent. I'm going to try to be brief. I think I'm going to ask Daryl if he wants to kind of convey what when we met with the splash pad vendor. Maybe give a quick synopsis of what we're facing.
I think we, just to be short on the PLC, that's the control module for the pad that is going obsolete, that will no longer support that controller. So that leaves us with the prospect of replacing the controller. And also a number of the valves need to be replaced. They're approximately, 13 years old?
Yeah, I think I bought 2 of them on Amazon for like $35 a piece. So that's not the expensive part.
Yeah, and the trick is getting the bolt hole patterns and the size that you need. There's some newer valves on there, there's some older valves, but not only does the PLC need to be replaced, but the valves also need to be replaced.
And I'm sorry, Daryl.
We met with a gentleman that drove a long ways to come here, but he services 2 different types of splash pads. The good news is, in his professional opinion, we have the good one.
And then when he left here, he went to Ligonier that almost needs the same thing we need, and hopefully we get to split cost on travel time, and hopefully we're going to work that out. But depends on when they try to do their work and we try to do our work. So it's something we need to discuss amongst Carol, Steve, I, the park board, the council on funding for that. So
it doesn't, right now, the valves need work, but the PLC may make it through the rest of the year. You don't know.
It's working right now.
Year. But it's not, you don't have to replace the PLC right now, but it's going to need to be replaced.
Yeah, start
But
playing.
the valve work needs to happen.
And we watched him, for 2 hours and a half just on one. It's kind of tedious.
Mm-hmm.
So
I won't go
yeah,
into all the details.
yeah. Well, I'll have a plan. So anyways, working on that. He was gone for 2 weeks. I've not got anything from him. I didn't even got an invoice for him to come. And so, any questions on the splash pad? I'll move on.
What prompted so prior to this, you weren't having an inspection and now you have to?
Oh, that,
That's a different.
That's a county health department.
I can't answer that 100%.
Okay.
I know there's abundance amount of money in a grant, so I don't know. It's state ordered, so they did hire a new person,
Okay.
and
It's like public water, so it's
Water safety.
pools,
Okay.
it's pools and hotels and
spas,
stuff
anything
like that.
public.
Okay.
So I do have a checklist. Terry will be involved with the water.
Okay.
It will be unannounced, and they're looking at our gates. They're looking at our water, our bathhouses, which I call them bathrooms. They're calling them bathhouses. We don't have showers. Good thing is they're all updated. We're in, good shape.
So it won't be a cost to the park?
Oh no, it was waived.
Okay.
So. Anything else on the splash pad? Gonna briefly talk about cameras. That's another project with a lot going on that I'd like to find funding for either this year or through the budget of next year. So that's something I want to discuss also with town manager, Carol, park board, everybody, basically get a plan. So if you have any thoughts on that, we've got the infrastructure in place now with poles. Probably get a few more poles set, but I don't really want to do that until we actually meet with a vendor for locations. We might need one somewhere else, but I know we're in good shape for a few. So, other than that, I told you I'd update you guys on the quarterly on the Diamond Discovery Zone Committee. That is our name for our fundraising for the new playground. You can see the logo that everybody voted on, the committee. Our last two meetings, we've had everybody present. I think we have 7, and last meeting we met in here with a vendor. And you can see a rendition of a possible playground for, so we're meeting the next 3 months or 2 months with vendors. And then we're going to get information from them to go out to locations to see their equipment instead of us just going out to anywhere. Now we have locations that 3 of the Indiana vendors, which most of them are local, have put playgrounds, all-inclusive playgrounds around us. So it was very dynamic meeting, I think. Steve, if you want to speak on it quickly.
Well, just very briefly, Casey has selected some really high-quality vendors.
Well, I think that the committee has, because one of them contacted Miracle, and I haven't even told you about that, and they're going to be just as good.
Yeah, so we learned a lot, and more to come. And then, as Casey mentioned, we'll be doing some site visits in the next 2-3 months, and it's really rolling along at a nice pace with a lot of creative ideas and people working together to kind of ultimately bring this all-inclusive playground to the site within Hidden Diamonds.
And we'll eventually have public hearings with different options, and we wanted to gather information and solicit some vendors prior and have some knowledge. And my biggest piece is not going to be the actual pieces. I think that's going to be more for the committee. My thing's going to be the maintenance, is going to be the surface, because the surface alone for 5,000 square feet is going to be 100,000. So, that's the maintenance. One's got a 15-year warranty, one's got a 5. I'm going to visit those sites and really study that. So that's
and there
going
were
to.
2 major, as we know at this point,
I should
2
have brought
different
that.
types
Yes.
of poured in. Well, one is poured in place like a rubber,
Yep.
and the other it's a kind of a grassy turf, but it's navigable by
Yep.
wheelchairs.
Yep.
Yeah,
He
very
has a
interesting.
picture of that
Yep.
in our report.
Got ya. Yep, I do. Thank you. Yep.
So all of that is to be determined, and more as we do more research, and Casey will be reporting on the committee's progress and ultimately decision points that will be needed down the road.
Yeah. I don't think I'll probably report back. Probably July is the late meeting, August, or probably September, October. Probably won't gather too much information, so that'll probably be the next update. And any time, if anybody needs the information, we've got it all. We've got running minutes. We've got a, I think, pretty neat system because Jalissa, I haven't responded yet, but she went in. We had a bunch of information given to us, and it's all on her site that anybody can log in and look at. So it's really nice. So other than that, got some eventually some ordinances I want to discuss. Park board's reviewing right now, going over, and just a lot going on. So any questions? I'm sure.
So the graffiti, this is like the second graffiti.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm assuming that you guys took care of it, right?
As far as cleaning up,
Cleaning it up?
yes, within hours.
Okay, so I don't need a detailed explanation, but the ordinances that your committee or your board is going to talk about, are you having dog leash problems? Are you having age limit issues at the splash pad? And are people riding UTVs on the trail?
I think I don't think the UTV's a real big issue, but we need we need to be able to enforce it. Scott, chime in anytime. Age, absolutely. This last 2 weeks have been unbelievable. I'll give you an example. When we got the rain Wednesday or Thursday, and the next morning there's 2 11-year-old girls in the ditch swimming. So, with no parents. There's no parent, not even a parent around.
In the running ditch down there by the
Yep.
bridge?
Never seen it before in my life. Week before, 2 kids came down the first day out of school, 9 and 10. No parents.
And we're in the river?
No, just waiting on the splash pad. And we have an age on there, but no, I'm gonna assume, nothing that we can, really.
What's the age that's on the?
12,
If you're not 12, you have to have supervision.
correct.
So are UTVs on the walking trail?
We've not had a maybe once or twice a year, a motorcycle this spring and maybe once last fall.
You just want to put something in
Yep.
place. And then the dog leash, it should say leash
Yep.
issues.
We have many dogs that go down there, and
Are there owners with them?
yes, most of the time, unless one's lost or yes.
Okay.
So there already is a dog leash rule.
Yep.
Right? But you just want to formalize it more so that you can enforce it.
Signage, maybe talk to some folks.
This is exactly what the cemetery committee went through, about 5 years ago?
Yeah.
We had an
Dogs.
open with all kinds of things.
Yeah,
And we got some really good information from people who live on Week Street and they're on West Main, about comings and goings and, you can't enforce anything if you don't have some stuff posted. But obviously, if an officer went in at midnight to see someone grieving over a grave, they gotta be able to do something if that's not the case.
Right.
Right. So the committee spent a lot of time talking about them then for the cemetery, correct?
Yeah,
And now you're.
a couple years worth.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, Facebook, put it on there, more signage, better signage. So I think we have a good action plan, but, there's a lot more people using the parks nowadays since COVID, in my opinion. Like, very, very busy.
Anybody have any questions for Casey?
Did I hit everything, Scott?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
We will move on to street department. Corey.
For the month of May in the cemetery, we had one service in the street side of things. Had a couple storm cleanups. Excuse me. We did some alleys grid. Obviously, the flower pots came out with the weather. They're not growing very fast, but they're out. The flowers are out. I'm sure everybody's seen some paving going on in the southwest side of town. Good news is, I think that's done for the 2024 plan should now be done. So that should be moving on 2025's CCMG paving. Other than that, we've just been obviously with the fair and trying to get things started. And once the weather stays somewhat warm or hot, we should be able to get some more patching and some painting done, but I don't really have anything else unless anybody else has any questions for me.
Would you explain what this floodplain manager certification you
Yeah,
completed? Would you tell us a little bit about what that is?
that's something that I think traditionally Steve and I talked about, like Jacob had a certification. Town held it before, and I just, Steve and I talked and thought we put it under my name now.
And it's a big deal too to have that, and so we appreciate Corey going through with that. It's good for the town, and
That was a training.
I appreciate you chiming in because I figured it was a big deal, but Corey wasn't going to tell us that. So thank you for investing yourself in that, Corey. And how was the fair for the street departments?
Good. Obviously, I wish we could have got a lot more of our normal stuff done before, but weather hasn't really been cooperating with us. I don't really want to paint when it's 40 degrees in the morning, so.
NDOT sure worked quickly those last couple of days.
Yeah.
I think Scott gave him a drop dead date. Please. Or Corey, one of you guys, was like, please have this done.
Scott, you're not reporting tonight, but you got any comments on the fair? Just
I think it went surprisingly well compared to some of the previous years. We were definitely down on Wednesday, but Saturday was a huge increase. We were really busy on Saturday. Pretty much without incident, a couple small things, but nothing major. And the cat was recovered. It did come home. So the Facebook post about the missing cat, it came back all by itself.
And the park, they did an amazing job too.
Were they worried that it
Yep.
joined the carnies?
They thought it might have been taken by the park,
Oh.
but it went to the woods instead.
thank you. Anything else, Corey? Anybody have any questions for Corey?
Corey, did you see the lights uptown that I was telling you was missing the paint? Are you guys gonna pay,
That's on my to-do list.
okay.
That's gonna take a little bit of time and obviously a little bit of the weather.
That's not on your scorecard, so.
No, got the lights completed off the scorecard.
Well, put that in its place,
Leave
bud.
it to Chris. Okay, once again, thank you, Corey, for that certification. Steve?
yes, Vicki, I just wanted to say, I was just conferring with Scott here. I wasn't around here last year to notice the difference, if you will, of what the police presence was, but I happened to notice, I saw a lot of the guys in here, I think they would mobilize here and so forth, and it just, I was down there one evening and it just seemed like, wow, there's a pretty robust police presence, and Scott did just confer that, yeah, that's, they amped it up from last year, so, maybe the fact that it went smoothly, less incidents is, Scott's had a hand in that, so we thank him for that.
Yep, thank you, Scott. Okay, thank you, Corey. We will move on to Water and Wastewater Department. Terry.
Has the council had a chance to look over the report? And if I can answer any questions, I will, or try to.
And we have an update on the Dixon agreement that we're happy once the council's ready to explain that.
I would like to update you on the newest blower at the lower sewer ponds. It has about 8,000 less hours than the other two blowers, and we lost one of the bearings on it. And come to find out, they couldn't get the bearing off, so the shaft had to be remanufactured at Boyd's Machine Shop. I appreciate that, and it's back in service now. But I can't. At the first go around, it was going to be like $2,100. I really don't know what it's going to cost with the machine work done to the shaft. But that'll be coming up here sometime once they get the invoice. And then last year we put that water main, that 6-inch water main up there at Groves in North York, and we retired 4 cords off the main, and one of them started leaking again. So we removed them live and put repair clamps around them. The guys got wet. It wasn't no splash pad.
Anybody have any questions on this report? Okay, let's move on to, if you're done, Terry, we'll move on to the Dixon portion of your report. Who wants to give us that update?
Steve?
I'll start us off. Thanks, Terry. So Dixon is the engineering company that has been working with the town for, I don't know, umpteen years. Terry's had a great affiliation with them. And they're specialists in water tank rehab, and that's what we want to do to the north tank. Terry can get into the specifics if you need that, as far as what does that mean. But in the agreement to hire this company, our attorney Kurt had some input to say a few things were needed, and we believe we've accomplished all of his recommendations. He wanted an affidavit, which Dixon has signed. We have that. He wanted one minor contract change in the language from one word to another. The company had no issue. They changed that, so we have that in the revised agreement, which is really the only thing that the agreement was changed with. And thirdly, there was some insurance concerns that Kurt had, and he asked that we have our insurance review it, and they did, and they were good on several fronts. First, Jared Raymer looked at it and said he had no issues. He would refer to his underwriting, which he did. They had no issues. And then the third element was something to the effect that they can get, so let's see, once we execute the agreement with Dixon, the town will be added as an additional insured, and something about the contractor would want to see this requirement as well. So that's kind of to be done after the agreement's executed. So it's kind of all the groundwork is laid for this agreement to be entered into with the council's permission.
I mean, I haven't seen what Steve's told me, but I have no reason to disbelieve it. So as long as what he said is true, those were our comments.
Okay. So Steve, is it your recommendation that the council sign it as you presented it?
It is, yes, thank you.
That's just you, right, Vic?
Yeah.
Okay, and really Terry, got all this together, and so yes, it's been his advice for some time to get the show on the road with this company.
I wanted to get something presented for the contractor to put the specs, all the specs on what actually type of paint and what of the work has to be done for OSHA. And then they'll follow through the whole process. And then there's still the follow-up 13 months later, and that's with this contract.
Yeah, I'm glad he brought that up. It's an A to Z
Yes,
proposal. They're going to handle writing the specs, bidding the project, awarding it, overseeing it to the end.
And we've already
Cleaner water
approved-
as a result.
We've already approved all of that. We're just approving the signature of the document.
I apologize, what?
We've already approved all of that. We're just now approving the signature of the document.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah, we just need to approve the engineering, what's it called, agreement for
Right,
professional
but I think the
services.
motion was, once those things were satisfied, you could go ahead and sign it. I don't think we need another motion.
Yeah, that's what, okay, all right. Is everyone okay with me? All right.
I'll follow up with that.
Mhm.
Who we send the contract, signed contract, who follows up? Do I take over, or does Steve take over for, contacting Dixon?
Well, that's kind of just a formality. It could be any of us, Terry. Either one of us is fine. I think I'm listed in here somewhere, if I remember, as some kind of principal contact or something, but it's always pretty much or as delegated if in fact that's the case, so. Yeah, one of us will contact them. And
Do
then
you have a
once you
pref-
sign it, yeah.
Terry, do you have a preference?
I'm gonna be on site, so I'd like to make that
Okay, sure.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, if I'm gonna be involved, I might say, let's go with Glidden paint, and we don't want that, I don't think.
Do you have anything
And you're
else,
gonna put
Terry?
a ladder up and do it?
Well, that's what I dream about.
Okay, thank you, Terry. We will move on to old business, which is signing the agreement with Basic Elements Design for an AMB roof project.
I could lead us off on this one as well, I believe. We had asked Steve Park, he's frankly been authorized, he's completed the work that we asked him to do. This is kind of after the fact, we need the paperwork to approve his contract, which it's a maximum of $9,400 to do the services involved in all of the specs for the roof, which were done, and that was all part of the bid documents that we're going to be opening tonight, incorporate that. And so his agreement basically is that 9,400 max, and then there's the strong possibility he put in a $1,000 contingency for different construction-related things that could occur that might require his on-site presence, which is kind of doubtful because we have Austin Pappenbrock, who's really going to be involved in the project hands-on, more than anybody. So that's the bottom line on his proposal that we would ask you to approve tonight.
Has the Public Works Committee reviewed this? What's your,
The only thing that I have is from March 21st, says Albion contract Omnia. I mean, am I missing something?
Originally, he had a contract and it was like $5,400. This one has gone up by $4,000 because $2,000 of it was for structural type of analysis that would be needed by a company called SES. And then another $2,000 was, part of it was for additional upfront time that he had to spend in reviewing the contract with our town attorney. And then where it was kind of back and forth for a while until finally the council had a clear direction to go with the original elements of his contract. But it did increase as a result of the structural analysis needed and $2,000 kind of to cover some of his upfront costs that he went through in large measure with our town attorney. And then $1,000 of that is likely to be not billed.
What's the date on that?
I don't have the date. It's likely the original that you were referring
Okay.
to. Was it March?
Back from March.
Yeah.
I think when we talked about it, that was a possibility. That was, I think Steve may have reiterated to that point that it may not stay the same if he had to do all this extra work. Do you remember that, Jane?
I do. Yes, and then also another question, does his structural analysis then suffice for not having to hire a structural architect to make sure that the building's sound enough for that roof? That might be more directed at you, Austin, than the town manager.
My taking from his explanation was that he is hiring structural engineering services out of Huntertown to do the assessment, and they'll provide the letter or stamp.
Does that $2,000 cover hiring them?
That is to cover them.
Okay.
Yes, that was, my assumption is that Steve collected that price directly from them.
So yeah, that was a cost that we knew we were going to have in addition to putting on the roof. So if it's just packed on there, I understand that completely.
Yeah, and to Austin's point, he's correct. Thank you for clarifying. And in the last page of his payment compensation, the $8,800 amount was for bid docs, including structural review by SES. And then the other $600 was for AIA-related document costs.
Okay, so if there's no further questions on that, I would entertain a motion for approval and my signature.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement with Basic Element Designs for the A&B roof project. Steve, can you reiterate what those amounts were?
Yes.
$9,400 with a $1,000 contingency offer?
Yes, the actual contract amount would be $9,400 for the max that they would go up to. And of that, built in is basically a $1,000 contingency for construction-related services when the roof is being put up there.
Basically not to exceed.
Not to exceed, yeah.
And
Okay.
I'll second his motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any other old business? Okay, we're going to move on to new business, and the first item is opening sealed bids for the Albion Municipal Building Roof Project. We've received 5. I'm asking Kurt to open them. However, we have to make a quick decision. They're not going to have a total dollar. There's some work that needs to be done. And Austin can either do that sitting here now, right? Do you have any idea how long that might take? Like by the end of the rest of our new business, do you think?
Yeah, as long as all my formulas were properly, I could say maybe 30, 40 minutes.
And he's welcome to use my office if that would facilitate a little more, less distraction for him. And with the area that is being alluded to is this bid is a little different than some others in that we're not being given an exact bottom line. We're given, 3 or 4 categories of specific numbers that are, let's say, flat numbers, and we have a summary sheet if Kurt or somebody would be reading these sections of each bid. But there's one unknown where the contractor provided a sheet, each one, of quantities involved on about the whole sheet. It looks like there's about almost 30 line items of, materials that they say, I need 10 of this, I need 5 of this. And each contractor, it's not a set quantity that was given to them. They decided the quantities that they're going to bid on the job. And so Austin, whether it's tonight or whether he comes back at the next meeting with the summary, can enter those equations in, and then he applies an across-the-board discount for each line item as appropriate that his company gives. And then, so that's the unknown tonight, whereas if he's able to calculate all this tonight, he's prepared to attempt it, he can still give us, at the end of the night, here's the bottom line numbers of each of these, I think we received 5 bids, quotes.
Can we just talk about this for a second in terms of, is there any opposition to just opening the bids and then letting Austin do his thing and coming back at the next meeting, kind of like we take bids under advisement for the next meeting as opposed to trying to rush
Well-
through with formulas? Is there a?
We talked about that, but normally when you open the bids, you make the dollar amount public. And we're in a situation where we can't ask and expect our attorney to give us any advice because we're doing a project which was against his recommendation. Kurt, not to put words in your mouth, but does that
No,
sum
that's
up what
fair.
you're?
That's
okay.
fair. Yeah, typically when you bid a public works project, which you're not doing that this way, you would read the bids aloud in a public setting. I don't know that it has to be done tonight, but I think clearly identifying the person and the company that's bidding and, giving whatever information we can doesn't preclude you from reconsidering it in the future as long as you take it under advisement. But once again, I appreciate that, Vicki. Don't take my reading this as acquiescence that we agree, because we don't.
Kurt,
So-
pardon me, is it your intent then tonight, you're going to open each bid, are you going to read the specific dollar amounts that they may have
I'm
indicated?
going to read what I can.
Okay,
In
and then
summary, general.
for the sake of the council, Austin prepared summary sheets if you want to follow along. It's a blank sheet, actually the school used it, and if it helps you to take notes.
I'd like one, thank
Yeah.
you.
Could you clarify though why?
I mean, you can
Why
have
they
Austin
wouldn't-
read them if you want. I mean, he's who you're really relying on for this project, so probably you can have him open them. It's not any better or worse than having me do it.
Why does the company not know what that formula would be?
I don't know.
Could you clarify why the bid they wouldn't be able to calculate it?
I've tried, Austin, can you add color commentary to what I was trying to explain as to the unknown number?
In the process, through your cooperative, through the Omni Partners Cooperative, you're purchasing materials, you're
Right.
purchasing it under your contract specs that you have with them.
Okay.
What the proposal provided that Steve put together is they are providing their base bid for their labor and their materials.
Okay.
They're providing you quantities of the materials that they're requesting that the town purchase. All I'm doing is tabulating what that materials quantity equals in value for you.
So all we'll be able to discern until Austin fills in the missing piece is, the 3 or 4 line items that we're going to be given for each contractor. And that might tell us something, but we won't know till that unknown figure is plugged in.
Public Works Committee, what are you thinking?
That's the materials cost. This is labor, right? Austin?
Yes, the number that they wrote on their form is their labor and non-essentials. And the Omnia total will be the materials total. And that's completely up to you if you want me to total it tonight and provide that to you. I'm completely prepared, whatever you choose.
So really, we are opening bids that will have labor dollar amounts
Absolutely.
associated with each bid.
Absolutely.
And if you recall, we asked them to quote it as doing the roof all at once or breaking it up into pieces. So there should be actually like an option on there, Kurt.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Okay, do your best.
First one is, should I wait for Daryl?
I'll fill in there.
The outside of the envelope says Dale Roach. I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. Hochstra Roofing Company out of Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Kurt, one more time, I apologize, what the name of the company is?
It's spelled Hoeksta. I'm guessing it's Hoekstra.
Hoekstra.
Okay, I'm just gonna read the numbers that are on here, and then you'll have to rely on Austin to help you figure out what they mean ultimately. But the first number that is on their Form 96, which is their purported contractor's bid for public work, is for the sum of $348,512. $348,512. I've never seen it before, to see exactly. And then there's alternates, of course, and et cetera. So the alternates, the information on this particular one indicates a base bid, hopefully I said that right, $348,512. It shows an allowance of $50,000 and an alternate of $485,340. Supplementary bid. And you will see. Yeah, I think that's everything as far as the identifying information. There's lots of other documents that are in here that you'll have to evaluate and determine to what extent they apply. I think the numbers, those are all the numbers I have.
By the way, while Kurt's opening the second one, if I may, Austin explained to me the allowance of 50,000 in this case, that's not on top of the base bid, that's within the base bid.
The next one, I'll say it and then spell it. Van Doorn. It's two words, Van, V-A-N. Next word, Doorn, D-O-O-R-N, roofing. Doesn't say where they're from on the outside. It appears they're from Elgin, Illinois. Their Form 96 indicates a number of $282,250, $282,250 with trying to find the same information. It's presented differently. That's what they indicate the base bid to be with this $50,000 allowance and an alternate of $408,750.
408,750.
Correct. I think that.
Austin, what is the alternate? What's the alternate number of 400 plus?
The alternate is sections 1 and sections 2, which would be the back section and the adjacent section. Section 3 is your primary right here over the
So the first number he's giving us is section 3?
Yes.
And then the alternate is adding sections 1 and 2.
Yes, which would complete the entire building.
So if we wanted to phase it, I think the original thinking was we would do this section first to protect the office space in case we wanted to do interior remodeling at some point simultaneously or shortly thereafter.
And the alternate is the total, or is that?
You have to add that to the first number.
In addition to the first number, right? Okay.
So they're all right around 700 plus thousand so far.
Yeah.
One's 750 and the other one's 690.
Okay, the third one is identified as being AAA Roofing. Doesn't say where at the moment. Let's see what we can find. It says it's out of Indianapolis. The actual formal corporate name, according to their Form 96, is AAA Roofing Co. Period, comma INC. So I guess that'd be AAA Roofing Company Inc. Island Avenue, Indianapolis. The base bid, according to this Form 96, verify this.
And these numbers don't have any materials in them yet. Okay, just checking.
And these forms, as you can imagine, they're not all reporting the same information consistently. So this one has numbers in different areas, but from what I can tell, the base bid appears to be $565,500. $565,500. Now, what I can't find yet is any information on those other numbers, so I'm not sure if they did it. It's not clear. There's
It would be labeled page 2 if you're looking
Yeah,
for it.
Unless it's stuck back here in here, maybe, yeah, they do have it it's in a different part. And they do have it listed with the 50,000 allowance, and their alternate is $965,950. $965,950. And it is consistent with the front page, which talks about a base bid of $565,500. So it's not in the same order, but it appears to be there. The next one is from CMS Roofing Inc. out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. CMS Roofing Inc., Fort Wayne, Indiana. Okay, their base bid is $297,300. $297,300. And on their supplemental, like the other one is not where you would expect to find it. Okay, they do provide that there's an allowance included in the base bid of $50,000, and they have provided for an alternate of $524,190. $524,190. One more.
Kurt, pardon me, by the way, were there 2 copies of each?
Well, not all of them do. Not all of them do. Some of them do, some of them do not. So that's part of the struggle, right? They're not all consistent. Okay, this next one is from Fort Wayne Roofing, a Tecta America company, Ardmore Avenue, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Fort Wayne Roofing, a Tecta America company. This one has several copies. All right, this base bid amount is $369,300. $369,300 with the allowance of $50,000 and the alternate of $477,700. $477,700. So there you go. You got plenty to look at.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kurt, these will be taken under advisement, and we'll have this on our agenda in 2 weeks, I assume.
So we're not asking Austin then tonight to calculate, is that correct?
I don't see why he can't have those and take them in Steve's office.
Makes me,
That's fine.
okay.
like I can sit right here, whatever you prefer.
Okay,
And the allowances are included in the base bid, so that shouldn't be calculated into it. All cases. Go ahead again.
Okay, we are going to move on to new business item number 2, discussion of transferring ownership, the property off of York Street to the county for parking. Steve. Is he the only one that's been in discussions with the commissioners, or was that you, Scott?
Corey, Steve, and I began the discussions, but most of the end stuff has just been me.
You want to go ahead and give us some insight then on this?
Sure. Our original discussion about the parking situation was the county was short parking spots. So kicking around some ideas, they were talking of different locations around town. The topic of the gravel lot on the west side of York Street came up. And in reality, they were interested about that lot, but their concern was doing improvements such as paving, camera, lighting on somebody else's property was their concern. Improving that because probably not a good idea. So after talking to them, there was some interest to whether or not we would be willing to maybe transfer it or low cost to the county so they could make those improvements. Since that conversation, they have purchased the lot north of the post office. And it appears there's about 18 parking spots going to be available in that parking lot. So they were hoping, or if this was going to happen, and the reason why I'm bringing it to the council is I got to have a feeling to what the council wants to do before I waste any more time in checking stuff out. But the idea is if something like this was to happen, they could improve both lots at the same time. And that would increase, within one block, that would increase parking spots. Our 16 parking spots on our paved lot, this doesn't include the gravel lot down below. 18 spots roughly at the post office and 14 spots roughly at the town gravel lot. So there's roughly 50 spots there that would be available, one block away from downtown parking, which is kind of a miracle in itself. It's that close. So they also were interested, or at least spoke of, getting rid of some of those trees that were on the west end of the gravel lot to clean that up too. So I asked around the town, and I received basically no resistance from any of the town directors, as Steve puts them, department heads. They can, 3 of them are here, they can speak on it themselves. So we see no reason why not to basically get rid of it. But I wrote you guys a note, a long-winded note on some of the positives and the negatives in order to get you guys at least on the same page where I'm at with the county in order to know whether to move forward or not. So I thought basically a brief conversation would be in order.
So the 14 spots would be in the gravel area.
In the gravel area.
But are we talking about from
Both
the
tracks.
north side of the property line all the way down to
Street.
the street?
There's 2 tracks there. They're 66 feet by 132 feet and each. So that would mean it's basically 130 by 130 square.
Do you have any knowledge of what their intent is for the lower portion of that lot?
They were going to have their maintenance crew that they use for the streets and roads to maintain that, including those two steep hills, those two steep embankments, not hills, but embankments.
The one, right, the one behind Steve Likes' house, for sure, because we maintain that.
Yeah, and the other one's no better. I mean, it's smaller, but once you get down towards the old, or the apartments, it gets pretty steep too there. And the only use that I have, or that I know of, Corey can correct me if I'm wrong, we used to use it for snow, to dump the overflow uptown into there, to let it accumulate and then basically melt. But that hasn't been used like that for the last few years, maybe a couple years, is that safe? Couple years, they've been putting it somewhere else. And then we've got one doggy doo station on it and overflow parking. That's really all that it's used for.
Do you know what they paid for the property north of the post office?
No, I really haven't asked.
I'm not sure how because your email's just talking about just giving it to them for free.
Potentially, yeah, or low cost. There's two IC codes that I've been bouncing around checking out, and I'm no attorney. This is totally an attorney's position, but 36.1.11.15 is one of the IC codes for exchanging between governments, transferring between governments. It also includes 36.1.11.8. There's verbiage in there. And 36.1.11.4.2, which I found very interesting, is if it's used towards economic development, which if we could slide a parking area into economic development to improve the downtown businesses, that IC code could be used. But one thing I've got to do is I've got to figure out how we acquired that property, because eminent domain in these IC codes seem to be a big issue. So I haven't done it yet. I want to get it ran by the county before I do any of that legwork, because that will go back many, many, many years. So, and if you don't want to give it to them, then I would like to know, somewhat of, on the tax rolls, which we really don't pay tax on it, we pay a ditch fee every year of like $25. It feeds into one of the ditches. But they're looking at $29,000 for both tracks on the tax rolls. They value it as. So there's also that $50,000 cap for a appraisal, if that comes to fruition. But there's just a lot of questions and a lot of variables, like what are we going to do with the land? Any intention of what we're going to do with the land. Casey's concerned about his workers' liability, slips and falls, that kind of thing. Getting that paved, we could direct the water could be directed where we want it to go instead of just running off a gravel parking lot. So there's a lot of positives, but it just depends on what the council wants to do with that hunk of land.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I thought we discussed all this parking prior to the annex. And I thought there was going to be plenty of parking. I thought we were actually even gaining parking.
We're all in the same boat. There's not enough parking. Whatever was said prior, I have no control, but there's not enough parking. Our numbers were coming from another government on their plans. But since we had parking in the, it's amazing, we had parking in the gravel lot, in the other gravel lot, in our town lot, down on the other, but below our town lot, our paved lot. We had enough parking to run almost an entire week with downtown closed. So that tells me that we can fit everybody here. Every parking spot we had downtown was basically in the center of town was unavailable. So we were able to fit and run business and conduct 3 trials, I think it was, last week, by utilizing everything basically within a block or 2 of the courthouse. So that is a valuable asset when it comes to parking, but I don't know what the valuable asset is when it comes to who owns the property. I would imagine the improvements won't happen unless ownership happens, or ownership changes, I'm guessing. Nobody's told me that, but that's what I'm guessing. So I'm doing my due diligence on my end, checking with my folks to see if this is even something that wants to be pursued, and if it does, is it gonna be fair market value? Is it gonna be a contribution to the downtown economic development? What's it going to be, or is it just a waste of my time? So that's kind of where I'm at. And we're really only looking at 14, what'd I say, 14 lots?
Spots.
I wrote it down,
14.
roughly 14 lots, yeah.
If those spots are all for county employees, could it even qualify for economic development?
It's not for county, they want that lot to be able to park those overnight trucks that are across from
What's that?
down there. That's why they want a camera and that's why they want lighting.
Okay.
So they can utilize those lots to bring county employees into their own lot, which will free up potentially square lots,
Oh, that makes sense.
kind of a stagger effect.
Yeah.
Another thing to throw into the mix, and I don't mean to muddy water, but is there any land that we would be interested in from the county where you could do kind of a swap?
Yeah, that's never been discussed, so. At least that I'm aware of.
And if there isn't, we wouldn't have to belabor it long. I don't know enough of the geography, but Scott probably does, and other directors, where if we set our eyes about and said, here's something here, we've been thinking this would clean up something, and I don't know if the situation exists, but it might be worth a drive-by on somebody's part to see.
And if it's an afterthought, the signage that we requested has been ordered. I did get a copy of the quote for the sign company. I did get a copy to Vicky. The wordage that was requested of Monday through Friday, I think they chose 8 to 4 p.m. only, county parking. The rest of the time it's available for whoever's there first. So they did hold up that part. They're also doing a windshield, whatever you want to call it, placard, sticker, whatever. They're creating those for the county employees, so we kind of have an idea who's county and who's public when it comes to sorting out the different parking locations.
I have one question. If we do end up, deciding if we want to give them that lot, we won't need to revisit the parking on the square, correct?
That should be set.
As far as they don't need it, right?
The original agreement was to bring that north to the east, make that corridor, or excuse me, north to the west. Here we go, just confusing again. York Street will be public parking corridor, right? And their county parking is going to the north of the courthouse, where our parking is. And that's the only change that we even agreed upon 3 years ago.
But I don't think this is a question, or it's a question for everybody. If we end up giving them that lot, they won't need that north side, correct?
No, they will still need that. That's part of the equation, is the north side.
I didn't understand that part. Maybe that's my mistake.
Yeah, that's where these signs
I
go
thought
that they
this-
ordered.
I thought that, again, my confusion, I thought by giving this lot, it alleviate us having to give them downtown parking. So, my mistake.
Right, that was an original agreement that Jacob was in the previous town manager was involved in when the annex was being built.
So we're still gonna have to give them like two sides of the courthouse.
North and south side of the courthouse. The south side doesn't change. Their intention is to give us 2 of those spots back on the south side because they want to knock that van transport down to 2 spots. We talked about that. You and I did.
So there is, I think I know the answer to this question, but I want to be 100% sure. There are spots uptown that's our property, that we are allowing them to designate Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, county only.
North and south side of the courthouse.
Was that been put in an interlocal agreement?
Verbal. Their attorney asked the same question.
I think that needs to be.
Yeah, we've been bitten by those verbal agreements multiple times.
I
thought
think
we weren't gonna
point in
continue.
case might be what you just experienced with Zach Smith wanting to change that verbal agreement.
27 spaces, 17 north, 10 south.
There's a couple oh yeah, you got the map there. There's a couple handicap spots. Yeah, that's the map. The most current map. So you don't even have to make a decision tonight. I just need to start the discussion. So, because you guys will make the final decision what and where and when and why, so.
Well, I think we're being very generous doing what we're already doing. And now this is just my opinion. I'm only one of 5 people, but, I don't believe our intent has changed from original verbal agreements. I think other circumstances have changed that's caused still lack of parking. I don't know.
Your letter, your letter to us, Scott, says this would free up more county parking in their annex lot, which in turn would help free up more on-street parking for the town.
Because people would be parking 17 spaces or 10 spaces.
Right, but
they're gonna park.
he's saying it would help free up, but we're not getting any of those spaces back, so that's really not helping free up anything.
After 4 o'clock, all those spaces are back.
Right, after 4 o'clock. I
But
know
either
they're
way, they would be.
Friday and Saturday, they're freed up. I think them putting like Zane's idea or whoever it was, I forget, but I think it was Zane, putting the only time on it really helped us with freeing up people's decision whether to park there or not after hours, whether it's weekends or whatever.
Let's be honest where we're at right now. All of the county courthouse employees park there anyways. It's how it's been for years. So let's not act like that's not a thing, because that is definitely a thing. I'm not opposed to giving them the lot, but I'd like something in return for, I would like similar signage on the annex parking lot as the 8 to 4, as well as the lot by the post office as well.
They already agreed to the lot north of the post office.
So in essence, when we do have things downtown, whether it's Monopoly on the square and, roads are blocked off around the courthouse where there's not parking, there's other available lots for people to come in and still be able to park. So
Sure.
I guess I would entertain a compromise on that front.
Noted.
My thoughts are, I'm not opposed to selling them the property. Because then, that gives us some taxpayer money, and, that gets us money.
So one last thing that I was going to say is I'd like an interlocal agreement with them, with stuff being spelled out. That this is agreed upon, that we will be able to share these lots, meaning public can use them after 4 p.m. and on weekends. And then that way we at least have something where they're not changing it in the future on us because they now own the lot.
Yeah, to do any of this interlocal, and Kirk can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure he will, that there has to be a almost identical, very similar resolution between both agencies in order to even make it. So I would assume that wordage can be put in to some sort of document.
Kind of like we did with Central Novos over
Absolutely. That's what got me checking on these
Same kind of
IC
thing.
codes, so.
Terms are what you guys need to help me with. I don't know
Right.
what they're, who and how.
And that's where I think the terms would come into play, is what Zane's saying.
And whether that includes money being exchanged,
Sure.
also.
Right, so
Let me,
we need we need to know where we're going from here.
another thought is, I know, it hasn't happened in the last couple of years, but since I've been president, I know the county has had comments to make about whether the snow got plowed in a timely manner for their employees to show up to work at 8 o'clock. I don't think that's been very current, but it has happened before. So are those lots going to be plowed like for weekend use, or are they only going to worry about them being open with snow removal at 8 a.m. on Monday? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I
if
can't
we're
answer that
sharing,
because that hadn't been
those are
discussed.
things that we need to discuss.
Sure. Abby or Daryl, do you have any
Well,
thoughts?
I kind of agree with Chris, we sell it, but I also agree with Zane that maybe it's an and we sell it and get these signs, but I think ultimately we could get rid of that property because it is an expense and a maintenance item for Allegan. So I'm good with selling it. I'm good with selling it and including some other things like the signage to free up some parking spaces. Or if we give it to them, then they have to give us something back, for a horse trade.
Were they offering anything up? I didn't think so.
Is there
but I
any
thought I'd
concern
ask.
about going up that hill without a sidewalk? Because if they're parking there, will they just be walking alongside the road?
Right. Somebody, Corey can probably tell you better than I can, somebody did some improvements to that entryway, but it no longer washes out. So that was the main problem getting out of the parking lot, because there was usually a deep trench right there on the edge of the road versus the gravel parking lot. It seemed to just wash away.
The best thing for them to do is walk down the alley, walk up the alley in between the 110 and the insurance company.
Yeah.
And go north.
But they're not gonna do that when.
I know, that's on them though.
Yeah, but there is.
There,
no-
but the
They will on an icy
visibility,
day.
I've run up and down that hill, and the visibility there is a concern, I think, so.
Sure. I
was
would
just
agree.
thinking-
It's a concern. Yeah, it's been a concern. It will always be a concern. I guess my concern is what are we gonna do with that lot, except just mow the grass?
Yeah, no, I'm okay with them using the lot, I just didn't know if they were then gonna need to
Yeah, we haven't talked about,
sidewalk, walkway or something.
I'm trying to rack my
Concern,
brain.
would potentially become their concern, that's good.
Right. And then they would be responsible for mowing it if it's just.
Yes.
Didn't want to say that the quiet part out loud, but that could be their concern.
Yeah, they did talk about the maintenance and they would be able to take care of that part. Without any problem there.
But they just want to put probation cars and some maintenance trucks down there.
Oh, so that one's gonna, yeah. there's
Probation
not gonna
cars are
be-
already there, I gave them permission to park those there, but
Yeah,
And
it's
then
like an
there's-
overflow lot. really.
right. that
There's
makes
like
sense.
8 other vehicles that sit across your place all the time,
Right.
unless they're out rolling.
Yeah.
And that's 8 spots. They drive their personal cars, that takes up 16 spots, because now that truck, it just adds, it just multiplies.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what we're trying to use, is every lot to its
Yeah.
fullest, to its sufficiency, or every spot.
I'm
Okay.
I'm
I
okay
guess
with.
personally, I'd like to know what they want to offer up, because I think we had to be very persistent in the signage.
And I'll gladly,
So-
I'll gladly go back and say, this is what we talked about. I think they're open for discussion.
They'll probably offer up the recycling offer.
They probably that.
All right, well, I don't want to belabor this, but I just wanted to get your guys' thought on it, and I'll be back.
You know enough to go back to them and
Negotiate.
see us, okay?
We'll see what we get accomplished.
You are a glutton for punishment.
Really? I think I've been glutton for many a year.
So you are gonna ask them about interest in purchasing the property.
Sure, yeah.
That's one of the options.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'll ask them. That doesn't cost a thing to ask them.
Okay, next, thank you, Scott, appreciate that.
Thank you.
The next item is to review the 110 South Orange Street request for proposal. We got a response this afternoon from Kurt, who has been out of town,
Steve.
and Steve, yeah. Did you guys all have an opportunity to see that?
I think the intent, Kurt, is more what your email,
I wasn't sure.
okay, so, I mean, I think that was the intent, was an exploratory RFP. I mean, are we in agreement on that?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the intent. I just don't want us to do anything that limits where we can go.
And I don't think it will, you know, I
Okay.
gave you some basic guidelines of what to do to tweak it a little bit, so.
And-
Otherwise, I like it.
And we need to put a time frame on it, okay? We can't leave it open-ended, you know, we can't wait 6 months.
I thought we did. Oh, no, those were things that Steve wanted us to address.
Yeah, I think 2 to 3 months, I thought was kind of the span of range we were maybe
80
thinking.
days, whatever you want to do.
I don't wanna do anything over 90 days. Because, you know, we're gonna have winter approaching us and we're gonna be paying, the bills there, so.
Steve, did you have a chance to review Kurt's suggested modifications?
Yes, thank you, I did.
I got this late.
Yeah, I did review it, and I responded
I saw
that,
that late.
I said, I said, I like his approach. I think he did express the intent of the council, and that's how I understood it. And I thought that it would be exploratory to really solicit creative ideas for property ownership / use without obligation to sell to any proposal. And then I thought that the draft RFP, you know, didn't hamstrung us, that we weren't obligated to sell. I inserted that one section 8.3 that said this RFP does not commit the town council to sell the subject real property. But I did borrow very heavily from 2 other RFPs that were definitely slanted toward the opposite of our approach. They were like, we're giving it out there and we're going to sell it to whom, you know. So that I didn't, so that language is in there. I think that's what Kurt saw and reacted to. So yeah, it would have to be cleaned up to, you know, presumably by Kurt to,
Or
us,
you
whatever.
can take my comments if they are comfortable with them and modify them. Yeah,
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was taking out the obligation.
Okay. And if Kurt's comfortable with that, once the council decides the refined direction, if you will, I could make those modifications, but I think, you know, it would still, should go back to Kurt for a final look-see to make sure that we've dotted the i's, crossed the t's as appropriate.
And I think you could approve it subject to that and get it out the door in the next week or so. I mean, I don't think you have to wait till the next meeting unless you want.
I would prefer not to.
Right, and let's put a time limit on it. Let's decide what the time limit is between the 5 of us. He thinks he can have it ready in a week. So how long do you wanna
Solicit proposals.
How long do you want to solicit?
How about the end of August? That's about 2.5 months.
Sounds
By
good.
the time it would be out.
So September 1st.
When is your first meeting in September? Just thinking maybe that'll be your.
When's the meeting in September?
Ninth.
First one.
Ninth.
September 9th.
Is that too late?
First, that gives you 8 days
We're meeting on August
to
26th.
review. It gives you 9 days.
And this is only June 10th. 2.5 months would be before our August 26th meeting. So let's just put a deadline on it before that. Let's just say August 22nd.
Vicki, can I ask a quick question? You know, the STAR team was talking about Indiana landmarks. I've reached out to them and there's a possibility of them being here on Friday just given the short timeline, is that something you would allow us to show them that building before all of this RFP starts, or do we need to wait until the 60 days or 90 days or whatever this begins?
Well, we can talk about that after the meeting, because that won't affect what we're doing with the RFQs.
Showing them the building doesn't really,
Okay, well, I just didn't know if that's given special favoritism to the STAR team, if we
No,
want to
we
see
would
it
show it
before
to
you put it
anybody
on
now
RFP,
anyways,
so-
if somebody
Okay,
expressed
I can work
interest,
with
yeah.
Steve on getting access and
Sure.
talk to you if they're available. So, thank you.
so what's the date, Chris?
I'm saying that we should make the date August 22nd. That's 2.5 months. And we can talk about it at our August 26th meeting.
So the proposal, August 22 would be the
Final date.
deadline for receiving back here,
Right.
right?
And that's
What
2
day is it?
months and 12 days from now, which is plenty.
Friday. And just to talk out loud here for a minute, I would be receiving these back, let's say, on Friday, the 22nd. Would give me, what would I be doing with those prior to just bringing them in their entirety to the council? I guess I could summarize and I could do that, but I wouldn't probably be able to get into too much in-depth analysis. Maybe it wouldn't be required. You'd open it up on the meeting of the, or who would open it up? I
Sealed, so.
wouldn't have to be
I don't think
sealed.
they need to be, because we're intentionally not going through the public disposition statutes, was my theory. So you can open them however you want, whenever you want. So if they start to come in, you can start to provide them. You don't have to wait.
I think when you get them, you should email them out.
Yeah.
I see.
At least that was my theory, is
Yeah.
because we're not doing a true public disposition, I think you can receive and distribute and analyze anytime.
Mhm.
Now, if you don't get one until the 22nd at, 3 or 4 o'clock, it'll give you a little smaller
days.
window, yeah.
So, no, that makes it very doable then under that scenario where I'd be getting these things, maybe sending them out immediately, or if they're coming in so fast, I'd wait a day, assemble it, or, but there's a way to get it in your hands pretty quickly prior to the 26th.
Do we need a motion for that?
Refresh my memory, did you pass a motion at the last meeting already authorizing this process? Then I don't think you need another one. It was more clarification of what the RFP, the intent was, and you guys have helped with that, so. I don't think you do, as long as you've already got one. So you can probably, if subject to their input, go ahead and modify it. If you want my final review, I'll give it to you. You know what I'm looking for, so.
Yeah. Right, so yeah, that's what I would think. If the council gives some definition, I'll go ahead, make the changes that Kurt has already recommended here. And then that's what gives him a second shot at looking it over to make sure that it kind of seems appropriate.
Insert the August 22 deadline, I don't know, noon on August 22nd or something like that, whatever you determine is
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah,
Let's
please do
say
noon so that
noon.
you can get any that come in on that morning to us prior to the week.
Oh, that's a good
Prior
point,
to the
right.
weekend.
And then the real question is, who do you get them to? You don't have to advertise them. You can, because this is not a formal public disposition of real property. You can get them to anybody in any manner you want. Hand deliver, email, post them, Facebook, whatever you want to do. That's kind of the cool part about not doing the public disposition. And we're really just, like you said, seeking exploratory, creative ideas. So,
yeah.
Now, once you get them and you find one and you want to do a certain thing, it may require us to probably go back and redo the process, but do it in a formal way. Yeah.
Mhm.
If you're okay with having the possibility of doing it that way. Yeah.
Matt, do you have a question?
Yes, is this like a 1-page document, 2-page, 3-page?
It looks like about 4, yeah, right now 4. I don't think that's gonna, if anything, I'll try to edit it down now. You're right, I'm sorry, it is 5, right, 4.
But you have.
This was the draft.
So I would like to be able to tell people where to find it.
Okay, so I'll work with you for that distribution then.
And I'll put it on our Facebook page for the paper, and I'll write a story about it here.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then, all the members of the chamber, I'll make sure has it, and there's a lot of avenues this can go.
And,
Real estate brokers and, any network that,
and you'll email that revised document out to all the council.
once, yes, my intent though really would be I'll make the changes, subject to, per Kurt's email and any other advice you give tonight, and then I'd still would like to have it go back to Kurt to give it a once over, and then once he says, yeah, then I'll start sending it out to him.
It'll be quick. I don't see.
That's a great idea.
I had one thing on the property goals, section number 2. I know Chris commented on it too, but my thought was a little bit different. It sounds like we would, the way that it's worded, I didn't know if we could do like and or, because when it says the building that will enhance its overall condition and appearance while supporting the creation of new jobs and providing complementary business use compatible with the town's historic downtown district. I was just thinking, if I'm sending a proposal, that's a lot of boxes that I feel like we need to check. So I don't know if there's a way we can word that differently so that.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, Chris, you were along those same lines in her suggestion. I don't know if you all saw her suggestion that was to kind of change that.
Yeah, she
last
was
sentence.
referring to that town's historic district. Yeah,
Right.
downtown.
I would just make it so generic that, you know what I mean? Because, define what's downtown already as historic complementary. You know what I mean?
Well, they're in essence going to be selling their idea to us.
Right.
So that goes to their responsibility to
Right,
get
but
their
I don't think you should pigeonhole them into
Yeah, that's.
a use.
And a funny thing, I got that came out of both of the other proposals where they were very specific, looking for certain type of development. So I think I borrowed that and I was influenced by it, but
Yeah, and I
change
think
it.
That's what
I
you
think
would
it's a-
normally do if you were actually going to bind the buyer. When you're doing this, I agree, the more flexibility, the better. You could literally just say, we're wanting to have proposals provided that somebody would acquire the building through, purchase, gift, or otherwise, and leave it at that.
I think you could use that verbiage still, but just make it such as enhancing the overall condition, appearance while supporting the creation of new jobs or providing complementary, so that it's not, like, to me, when I read
Mandatory,
it me think, okay, what exactly are we looking for that's gonna check all those boxes? But
Yeah.
maybe it was just the way I
Okay.
read it.
Very good. I'll work on that. I'll change that. And then I've got the 2 dates in my, go ahead, Kurt.
For future, just so that you know, what you did was very appropriate if you're going to actually go through a formal RFP. So I don't want you to think that I'm being critical of that. It's more a question of, we're not there yet, so I think.
Right, yep, very good. Well, this was one instance, I mean, Kurt's advice was a little, very flexible there, it seems, so that's good.
Cause he was on vacation, or out of town,
Yeah.
not vacation, but
Yeah.
out of town.
Yeah, a little bit of both. A little bit of both.
Okay, so Steve, you're clear?
Yes, thank you. I will proceed, and the intent is I get something in Kurt's hands by early next week, let's say, and then he works on it, and then once he gets the go, it's out the door.
Okay, any other comments? All right, we are going to move on to item number 4, approval of the cemetery deed. This is conveying to Michael Adams and Tina Adams, lot number 114, section N, grade number 2.
The motion, sorry. A motion to approve the deed as submitted to the council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 5 that we've added, this is Leatherman requesting an advanced payment. Steve, you want to give us the lowdown on that?
Yes, if you recall, the Leatherman received the bid award for the 3 iron filter tanks at the water plant. And they came to find out that the plant that's manufacturing it, called Quick Tanks out of Kendallville, require a 25% upfront down payment prior to manufacture, and then another 25% prior to shipping. Then the rest would be along standard guidelines after job completion. The remainder would be given once we've inspected and are satisfied. So in talking to our engineers, VS, Landon Geiger, he said the contract is set up to be a lump sum with monthly progress payments that were noted in the bid documents. And he says that we as a town can consider, if we want to, consider the ordering of vessels, i.e. of these, these huge tanks, to be classified as units completed. And so in that, there's the gray area, if you will, that he would allow us to go ahead. Because normally, as Carol has reported to me and others, we don't typically prepay for any materials on projects. So there was that gray area, I think, allowing us some wiggle room to do it for the sake of the requirement that this manufacturer has. And it would involve $23,538.75 now, prior to them beginning to run their plant to manufacture the 3 tanks. Once done and before it leaves their door, the same amount, $23,538.75. And then from there, it reverts back to the standard type of process, which would be payment upon install and customer satisfaction. That remaining amount, the total contract is 200 with Leatherman, $212,983. So yeah, this we're requesting advance authorization for both the pre-manufacturing advance and the pre-shipping advance, each of the amount $23,538.75. And then from there, it goes to the final payment due Leatherman, which would also include the amount due to that they would owe Quick Tanks, would be the final payment, $165,905.5. So the total contract would not change, $212,983. So we're asking permission that this would be approved, this advance payment, these 2 advance payments to Leatherman, so that they can pay the manufacturer.
They want 1 payment or 2?
It would be 2 payments. One now, so they would begin manufacturing the tanks, $23,538.75, and then the same amount once they're done manufacturing and before it leaves their door to our plant. That would be the second advance payment requested.
Who's installing them?
Leatherman is, yeah. They're the general contractor.
So we're gonna get another invoice after the tanks or the filters are produced?
Yeah, as I understand it here, the way Landon, well, actually, it's funny though, the way Leatherman said the final payment would suggest that they're waiting to the very end until they receive their payment. I don't know if that remaining contract balance upon completion, $165,905. This came from Leatherman, so it's as if they don't require any payment until all is said, done, and we're happy.
Right, but we don't know how long it's gonna take to make them, right, Terry?
I thought they were already started when the contract was signed. I thought they were already making them until Friday of last week. I didn't realize that Leatherman wanted more money.
Okay,
And 2 years ago, we wanted the town to buy the tanks anyway.
Do you, Terry, need us to approve the first one of 23,000 and some change? And do you need us to approve the second one of 23,500 and some change?
No, I'm not. I'm
You
not
just want us
agreeing
to-
to anything like that.
You just want us to approve the first one?
I'm not agreeing to that either. It's whatever you guys want to do. I wanted to,
What's
2
your
years ago.
What's your recommendation?
It's in the contract, right? We
So
pay at
your
the end.
recommendation is we do nothing?
We pay at the end. Does the
Right,
contract
so
say?
we do nothing, right?
Well, the contract according to Landon is that it's set up to be lump sum with monthly progress payments. So percentages based on, as they progress, i.e. Leatherman. So the fact that the company is progressing, their subcontractor, the supplier, with production could be considered units completed. And so we have justification to pay Leatherman in advance because it's the progress. It's kind of an advance, but you could say starting the manufacturing process involves that company kicking in so much resources that they need that amount from Leatherman, and Leatherman is not set up to give it. Frankly, it's the way they
Have we ever done it like this in the past? Normally it's just.
Once they completed a phase of a project and it was satisfied, well, are we satisfied with tanks that already started there?
Right.
And how do I know they're building the right tanks?
Right.
I thought when the tanks were on site, for us to remove the old ones, that would be a phase that we pay. But it's not my decision, really.
Is this
I just-
common?
I can give you my feedback and you can take it or leave it. There is a statute, and I'm surprised nobody's talked about it yet, that specifically addresses advance payments. It requires you to have a policy before you can do them, and there are very severe limitations on when you can make an advance payment. And I'm sure that Carol, who I wrote down on this, defer to Carol, would agree, and I'd be anxious to get her opinion on it. She is the one that can get written up for making an advance payment if it's in violation of a contract, in violation of your policy, and if it's in violation of the statute. I don't know that it is because I haven't sat down and looked at these. I don't know if you have a policy, and I don't have the statute in front of me. But I just know that if you're going to approve it, you want to do it subject to making sure those things are all in compliance. Because I don't know, since I'm new here, whether you even have a policy that allows for advance payments. But I know you can't make advance payments without a policy in writing.
The only policy we have right now for advance payments has to do with utilities and those type of routine things that need to
Not
be
this
done.
type of manufacturing.
What you're talking about, I understand, is a recent change that allows for advance payments, but we're supposed to have, like
Yes.
you mentioned, a policy or resolution in place that specifies what we are going to allow to be paid in advance, and we do not have that.
So if you want to do that, we can do that. We can develop something quickly and you can approve it subject to that resolution. But like I said, it's just so that you know, an advance payment, to answer your question, Vicki, is not, I don't want to say it's not normal. It's designed to be avoided unless you can't avoid it. And so if this is a situation where his project's going to end, if we don't do it, then we ought to probably look at a policy, get it passed, and approve this subject to. If it's something that it's just a convenience issue, I would agree with Terry in that I would recommend against it at this time. But I want to make sure the project continues and that you get what you need ultimately, all of you. So if the advance payment is necessary and you don't have a policy, you want to approve it subject to, we get a policy prepared, I'll have it ready for you at your next meeting and you can get it done. But I wouldn't do it without a policy in place and a resolution approving it.
Well, shouldn't he have known that when he started working with the supplier?
Well, I don't know, I mean, you would think, I'm surprised.
Yeah, they
that he
gave him a
has.
heads up. It was 3 months to build them tanks.
That's pretty normal manufacturing policy.
The prepayment?
For private.
In manufacturing.
Yeah, for private,
Yeah.
not public.
In
Yeah.
private manufacturing,
In private.
And so normally, the
That's-
company that got awarded the bid would just cover the cost
yeah,
until
yeah, like,
work is.
say I'm gonna build a house or I'm gonna build a car, or, build a manufacturing facility. Nobody wants to be a bank,
Right.
and some people can't be a bank, so they do progressive payments. You know, we're not gonna start on this until you give us a check. And then once you give us a check, then we're gonna give you a design, and then you're gonna get a percentage then. And then at the time you start to build, you're gonna get another check. And then when you approve it, wherever it's being built, then you get another check. Then after you have it for 90, 180 days, you get another check. That's pretty normal.
In the private sector.
In the private
Not in the
sector.
public. Yeah, that's the distinction.
But even in the public sector, this question should have been asked a long time ago.
Well, did we sign a contract with that verbiage in it?
It would have been in the bid specs. That's kind of part and parcel of the contract. And Landon, what he said was that it was allowing for progress payments, which is kind of what you've
Progressive
described.
payments, yeah.
Yes, but as Terry was alluding to, it's normally when work has shown to be done. This is a little bit unusual in that these are expensive products, but again, to everybody's point, yeah, the contractor should have known that in its bid, that what our payment plan was going to be, and there was really no productivity is really going to be shown until maybe Terry could go to the plant and see, okay, they're started already, or it could be done on that basis too, I suppose. But yeah, right now we don't have any. They want it prior to starting.
I think the vendor's just saying, hey, you pay us the money, or we're not gonna start on it. And then our contractor is saying, we don't wanna be a bank, let's ask the town to be the bank.
Right.
That's kind of how I see it.
But with that contract being signed, they are filling them for Leathermans. The end result is our tanks when they're in the building, correct?
Matt, you have a question?
Well, I was going to comment that the town of Avila recently went through this exact same scenario. This was for a $100,000 piece of something for their mechanical sewer plant, and all of a sudden, the producer wanted it money up front. So they had to go through the process, had to create a policy, vote it in, and then agree to it. But so it is rare. It was the first time I'd ever seen it. But
Ultimately, you're doing the resolution, if you consider doing this, you're not really doing it for Keith, although you kind of are, but you're doing it to allow Keith Leatherman's contractor,
not Keith.
who's a custom built tank.
Yeah, it's not Keith.
Oh, I'm sorry, Leatherman Construction.
and I thought Avila paid their check to the supplier, but I'm not sure.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a relatively new, I think we've done it in a couple other places in the last 12 months, so it's relatively new statute. And it's just designed to limit public entities from paying for everything up front without getting anything in return. I think the language is 50% of the contract up to a set amount. It used to be several hundred thousand. I'd have to look, but there is a specific statute. It's different than the utility regular recurring claims. It's prepaying for something we don't have.
Which I didn't bring that up because I really am not in favor of doing that in general.
Yeah, I've got the contract. It's 48 pages. It took me forever to find it. Would you like to look at that?
I always like to, but I like to see it before it's signed, not after. Yes, I would be happy.
I also,
I'm sure you can find the verbiage you're looking for.
you have to wonder if the other bidder
About the payment.
I'll take a peek. You guys yell at me if you
wouldn't be getting progressive payment for, well, I guess they were gonna build the tank. They were going to build the tank.
Yeah, that's a good point. Carol brought up a really great point. I don't know if everybody heard that other bidders, may have bid with the expectation, knowing that what the payment structure was going to be, and had to probably up their price as a result.
It was after that. It's after that. It was attached to that. It was at the bottom of this.
Who's Joshua's in office?
Part on.
What, we could go back to Leatherman Construction and indicate that there's some complexities involved in that, you know, they were aware of the whole payment process described in the bid specs, and we would be incurring some costs to go through what Kurt has described would be necessary.
And just so you know, if you do end up doing it, it's a policy that applies to everybody moving forward prospectively, not just this contract. So you have to decide from a policy perspective, do you like doing this or having the flexibility of doing this? If you do, have a policy. If you don't, then hold everybody's feet to the same standard.
Is this anything we've had requested? I mean, he said in the last 12 months, he's seen it more. Is this anything we've encountered and we've just told him that we don't do that or anything?
I don't know if you're asking me or Carol.
You were here earlier on.
I haven't been here long enough. I am not aware of it. I don't know if Carol is. If we
I
got
can't think of one right off the bat.
I don't recall it.
I know we had it happen in the former town that I was involved in, and they were very adverse to doing any advance, but there was some wiggle room in some instances, and I forget what that was, but now the law has allowed the wiggle room if we put it in a policy form. But to Kurt's point, it's kind of interesting. He said, you know, we have to decide, do we want to have that as a policy? And if, let's say we had the policy, would we be discriminating if we said yes to one company and no to another, yes to one project, no to another, in terms of allowing an advance or not? And that might be.
And I think that you always you always want to think that through, because it is an allegation that contractors can raise. It all comes down to, facts and circumstances, what's reasonable at the time. You do have the flexibility of it, but you don't have the flexibility of doing it without policy. So until you make that decision, I mean, I'm waiting to see what they say, but you would want to make the decision if you're going to do the advance pay subject to the adoption of the policy, and then you get that done.
It seems like the policy would eliminate favoritism, though.
It's designed to, but it also gives some flexibility depending on if there is a need and if it's urgent, if it's, something, there's a reason that you have to do it. So it gives some objective standards, but it is designed to eliminate favoritism. Give it to this one, but not to that one. You're exactly right. I'm getting there.
That's fine.
No, we're just trying to find it.
They're stating in their email, monthly progress payments, Article 6.02.
It's true, but what has been completed?
Maybe engineering, maybe. Maybe not, you don't know. That'd be Quick Tanks would have to answer that. Or Leatherman. Did Leatherman they have to approve a set of engineering drawings to start the fabrication of the custom piece of equipment. So if Leatherman hasn't approved those engineering drawings, I doubt that Quick Tanks would start on them unless Quick Tanks made them before for somebody else. I don't know.
They're calling out 6.02 in their entire email.
And I gotta tell you, I don't see it.
Okay.
I mean, I read it. I don't see that it'd be a leap.
Okay, let's do this.
Now, this one's not signed, but I assume.
Right, let's do the document let's get we need
policy.
we need the policy in place anyway.
I don't want to do it, I just want to be on the record that I'm not in favor of that.
doing a policy.
Oh, you're not, you don't want to do the policy?
The
Okay.
contract was signed, in my opinion.
Well, it's 48 pages and, you know,
And
I'm not sure how much Kurt's gonna get out of speed reading 48 pages.
That's fine, but, I mean, if we need Kurt to review this legality behind it, but I don't know, it's, contract was signed.
Yeah, and I feel like we should be allowed the time to review it properly rather than make a rush decision, since we did have the
So you want
contract.
to table it until we can review the contract, today's contract?
Well, at least have Kurt's input on that.
And my input, based on what I see quickly, is it comes down to whether you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, then there's no sense wasting your money on me spending any more time with this or with the policy. So that's question number one. If you want to generally have the opportunity to do it in the future, that's another issue, which we could do anytime. And then I guess, the third issue is if you don't want to do this particular thing, then I don't think me reading that is going to help ultimately make the decision. It really comes down to whether you want the ability to prepay for something that you don't have under this advanced payment statute, which requires a policy.
We just finished a project, it was $169,000. And there was no money up front for any material. And the manholes were all specially designed. I think there were 7 or 8 of them on 150 and Progress Drive. And we never paid for any of that until the project was completed.
Normally, the contract that you sign binds you to that amount of money.
And if somebody, a contractor, wanted something like that, it should have gone up right forward to us.
And I think Carol made a great point, and then that could have affected the prices of the other bidders ultimately.
If you're gonna spec it out, you would think, now, I didn't see their specs, I didn't see their contract, I didn't see what Leatherman did, but you would think that it would have been as part of the, I don't know, do you have a pre-bid meeting or something where they talk about whether or not they're gonna have to, front this money for this tank, et cetera? You would think that discussion would have all taken place already.
And Terry, your preference is to not do it. Is that what you said earlier?
Kurt, I was under the impression in a previous jurisdiction that contractors who dealt with municipalities, municipal entities, that there was what am I trying to say? That the municipalities had an extra, they were like insured that they would get their money somehow.
Yeah, a municipality, of course, is different than a private. You contract with me, you have to rely on my financial statement. You contract with a municipality, you're relying on the full faith and credit of the town, its tax base, et cetera, et cetera. It's much, which is why you shouldn't have to rely on this, and that's what typical bidders would expect. So, it's a prepayment in advance is allowable. It just, you can't do it nowadays in Indiana without having a policy that allows for it. So,
I personally would be open to the policy if we were to see this was becoming requested more often. But on a one-time deal, the first time, I don't want to rush into anything, and I think that
I've started to see it a lot in supply orders, things like that. They want their money before they will, I don't know how that works with ordering ammunition, things like that. A lot of times, what I've been seeing lately is people want their money up front before they'll send it. The only way you can legally do that in a municipality, in a public setting, is to have a policy that allows you. And there's limits to how much you can prepay. So,
is it gonna affect whether the job is completed?
If the tanks aren't built, yeah, it'll affect it.
Yep.
Well, that I know, but
Well, it's gonna come down to whether they wanna dual. They wanna, I don't know, fence with the town over those payments. Now, if the contractor doesn't want to pay the fabricator, and the fabricator has the right to say, well, good, we're not gonna build them. So that leaves you with either coming up with your own money to pay to the fabricator, or not doing it and just telling us that, hey, sorry, we can't do it because we don't, whatever the situation is, we're not gonna pay them, they're not gonna start on the tanks. So, you know what I mean?
Well, what happens when we pay 2 installments and they back out of the contract?
Well, that's a potential breach, and I'd have to read it and help you decide how you're gonna pursue.
I'm not advocating that we do it, I'm just trying to explain to you what could how it works and how it possibly could end up. You know, it could end up that they say, we're not gonna build them. And then now, you know, Leatherman Construction has to come back to us and say, hey, we have a problem. And then you're gonna have to deal with it at that time.
And then in that, what that would look like is you decide whether you're pushing back or
Yeah.
accommodating through a policy.
Yeah, or they go to the bank to get a loan, go
Yeah.
ahead and pay it.
But you would think that when they bid it, they would have known, so. But like I said, I haven't read all those specs, et cetera. You would think the specs would say whether or not the contractor has to finance it essentially or not.
Now,
I don't know what
I need to read some stuff before I can.
Chris, what was the date of that contract?
Okay, this says,
They were supposed to start in August.
one's talking about
March
section
28th.
6.02, one's
March
talking about
28th.
paragraphs 9.07, and one's talking about paragraph 1103. It says, it's from Landon and Carroll dated 3/26/25, and it's titled Water Plant Pressure Filter Replacement. And you have to scroll down to the bottom thread to find the 48-page contract.
Which I don't have, but I probably have now since you emailed it to me.
Yes, I think
Because
I sent you the whole thread.
Yeah, I didn't have the whole thread.
They're the exact same as what was in there in 1960.
I'm just looking at the Chinese.
Do you have the contract on this thread?
Yeah.
Accepted. Those accepted.
Did you find what the email I sent you?
I gotta get back out there. I found it, but I can't.
No, I mean the one I sent.
Oh, no,
Just
it-
now.
Chris.
Right here, Chris.
Still not have yet today.
There was Seymour.
It's 124.
Package review.
That ain't it?
Nope.
All right, I'll send it to you again in a different document.
So do you guys want more time or is somebody ready?
I think we should go back to, the roof.
But we can't just,
I mean, I'm looking in the
Finish
section.
this up first.
Look, I'm still looking.
I can't find it. I don't have it.
so we either know enough information to make a decision or we are gonna table it.
I'd like table it. I'd like to table it till the next meeting and see how much information we can collect so we can actually read the contract.
Okay, Carol, we're tabling this item.
I can't make a decision.
It seems like we could just go to the contractor and say, hey, we'd have to go through all this, we're not really wanting to do that this time. You know, you'll get your progressive payment once the tanks are installed. If that's the way I understand it's in the contract. But I don't know, to me, this is a normal part of doing business. You either negotiate an upfront payment, or if you're building something, you pay for the materials and you don't get your money until the project is done and delivered. But that's all agreed upon with your customer up front. So to me, this is highly unusual.
And Leatherman's invoice is for $23,538, so I think that was one question. So that's what they're requesting right now.
I think there's another 20-some thousand on
He
delivery.
said it was the same amount several times.
Yeah, that'll be invoice number 2. But right now, they're just requesting 23,000.
Is that in the claims?
They said they sent
Do you need a
Steve an
motion?
invoice
Formal.
for that. Showing
That's-
what they're-
It's not in the claims.
We didn't vote.
Oh, you mean paid? No, I did not pay any of that. They sent an invoice.
But it- But it's not in this stuff that we're gonna
No,
approve tonight.
no,
No,
We
it's
need a
not.
motion to table it.
That's what he's
No,
asking.
not if you're,
Okay.
I mean, if you want a decision made or policy started or something like that, yes, but if you're just gonna discuss it at the next meeting, then you want to show up.
Is that what you
Okay.
guys wanna do? is just-
I did find the 6.02. Owners shall make progress payments on account of the contracted price on the basis of contractors' applications for payment on or around the second Monday of each month during performance of the work as provided in paragraph 6.02A.
What is that?
All such payments shall be measured by the schedule of values established as provided in paragraph 2.07A of the general conditions, and in case of lump sum work based on the number of units completed, or in the event there is no schedule of values as provided in the general requirement. Okay, just a minute. I'm just gonna send this all to you guys.
Is there a signature on that?
I'm looking. I gotta go down. I'm on page 25. Let me go down to page 48.
Because you can read it all you want, if there's no signature, it doesn't count.
I saw that second.
Well, that's happening. Austin did summarize everything if you're ready, we'll distribute this. And so, he can explain it and it's interesting and you may have questions and no action needed per se, but he did accomplish what he was hoping to. So we have
Did
some
you just
bottom
make
lines.
copies of those?
Yeah, right here. Yeah, I have it.
So we're not gonna make notes again. You're gonna give us the final figures.
Yes, I'll hand this out when you want it out.
I'm curious what the consensus is, if there is one, about whether or not a policy should be created for these advanced payments or not generally. Because if the answer is no, then it just seems like you're going through an
Tabling it is
exercise of futility. I think
I'm
that's-
not in favor of it at this time. I would be open to it later if it's a continued request, but first time out, I'm not. Anybody else?
I'm not either unless there's a signature on the contract. Then I'm very interested in it.
Well, there would be a signature on the final contract, but
That's not what we
the
usually do.
wording of the contract doesn't line up with what they're asking to do.
No, but it
They're
talks
asking
about
to pay.
progressive payments.
Correct.
And
but-
progressive could be anything.
But
No,
when
it's
you look
stated
at it,
in
that's
there.
going to the contractor. So what
Yeah.
work has the contractor performed? I would argue they've done nothing.
Right.
They are contracting quick tanks.
I would agree, but
So-
until I can see the verbiage in that.
Yep.
Until he can see the verbiage in it, do they specify 25%? But they talk about every month.
But no amount every month.
Yeah, and it
No.
definitely says during the performance of the work.
Okay, I'm sending this to all of
All
you.
such payments will be measured.
Table this until we all get to read the
Right,
verbiage.
I can't
The
do this.
contract.
Yeah, you guys need to tell me if you got the dang document, because I had to send it in a whole new.
I have it. I found it from that date.
Yes, you did, yeah.
The March 26th. I just searched it under that.
For some reason, the thread of email on that.
Right, you dropped your thread. But I put it in a different document.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay, should say 48 pages, blah, blah, blah.
I should be able to read that
Okay.
by next week.
Thank you. Dang, even had to do it professional.
Okay, so are we tabling that?
Yeah, we're gonna take that under advisement.
I just want to read it.
Okay, let's approve the cemetery deed, so I don't forget it before we go back up to the roof. Oh, we already did that, I'm sorry. Good
It's
golly.
signed.
Okay, we're gonna go on back up to opening the sealed bids for the roof project. And we have,
We passed around the summary
Yeah.
of what, I think, if you don't mind, before I butcher up the explanation, maybe Austin could explain what what the critical lines here are. Do you mind, Austin?
I don't know. The first line at the top is the number, is the value that Kurt read aloud for the base bid by contractor. The second line is in each of the contractor's documentation or folder. I confirmed that they had what was called a bid form exhibit A for your base bid. That is where they specified the quantity of materials they're requesting the town to purchase. I took all of those materials and I summarized what the total was for their request. The third line shows you the total between that base bid that was read aloud and that material total. The fourth line is the alternate value that Kurt read aloud.
Pardon me, Austin, and just to clarify, bid number 1, you had said earlier, that is for that's for this section of the roof.
For section 3 over your office.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry, thank you.
Line item 4 again was the values that Kurt read aloud for your alternate. Line item 5 was the exhibit sheet for alternate and materials total. The sixth line is that alternate total, labor and materials. And the very final line is the combination of your base bid and your alternate bid and both exhibit materials quantities.
Which would be the whole cost of the whole roof.
That's correct, all low slope roof surfaces.
Okay, because I got a little question here. On the Fort Wayne roofing bid, on the fourth line down, it says 447,700. Me and Daryl have both wrote on our papers, not 447, we have 477,700.
That was a great catch, and this is what I wrote.
I also have 477.
You have the bids.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes, that is a typo, I
Okay.
correct that,
So the Fort Wayne roofing one, fourth line down, gotta add 30K,
77.
477,700.
So the 920 becomes 950.
Right, that is correct.
Oh, and then the one below that has to be added.
Yeah,
Right.
1.81. 1,800,000. Oh,
No.
never mind. Sorry.
540.
Yes.
543, okay.
Yeah, 1543.
Yes.
The rest of what I can tell looks like it matches up with what I wrote down.
We'll save that and resend it.
So it looks like we were pretty doggone close on the old estimate.
Because which we had said was 1.5 million.
Right.
Between 1.4 and 1.6, depending on the option. Corey and Steve and I met at one time and they confirmed they wanted to go with the 32-year warranty.
With the what warranty?
What warranty?
The 32-year,
Oh, I thought we went with the 40.
40-year roof.
it is a 40-year roof, absolutely. After consultation and reviewing slope and everything with the roof, without having to change the pitch of your roof with additional tapered insulation, the most cost-effective system was the 32. That's the warranty period. That is a longer lasting roof.
So we're getting a 40-year, but the warranty's only 32? It's
The
not
warranty
making,
is 32, with a life expectancy to exceed the warranty, where some other standard commodity systems that have a hard time ever reaching them.
So are these ready to go under advisement to
yes,
the
I think so.
Public Works Committee?
Do we want to go ahead and read the total numbers of each one since?
That's probably a good idea since we have the opportunity, Kurt's agreeing.
So this would be total bid. The only question I would have is, do we want to do the, section 3 only, or do we want to read all of them? So section 3 and the entire roof ones?
I would just give the final base plus alternate bid.
So both, the section 3 and then the whole roof.
Up to you, but that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so base bid for section 3, AAA roofing is $796,253.08. CMS roofing is $517,343.80. Fort Wayne roofing is $592,227.03. Hoekstra roofing is $576,958.18. Van Dorn roofing is $493,747.20. So those are all for section 3 only. Total cost of replacing the entire roof, so sections 1, 2, and 3. AAA roofing is $2,269,694.74.
Pardon me, Zane, did you want to read that subtotal above that? In that you read the subtotal of the section 3 roof, this would be section 1 and section 2 subtotal?
I did not. I wanted to read section 3, like we're going to just do one section first, and then, or the alternative would be doing the entire roof.
I follow. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. Great.
Okay, so that was AAA roofing. CMS roofing is $1,572,848.64. Fort Wayne roofing, correct me if I'm wrong, but $1,543,167.94. Hoekstra roofing, $1,538,467.79. And Van Dorn roofing, $1,324,501.27.
You don't need a motion to take them under advisement. Okay,
Any other new business? Okay, let's go to approval of accounts payable and payroll vouchers dated May 29th and June 10th, 2025.
I move we approve accounts payables and payroll vouchers as of May 29th and June 10th, 2025.
We
I
have
was
a-
waiting for you, I was watching.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll entertain, oh, I'm sorry, all those opposed? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll move we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Who seconded that?
Have a good evening.